Oh, that you. What's that?
Girl, it's all right. Look, yeah, I got my answer last year.
Here you go.
Like if, she's a man, I tell everybody, if I don't get to you, that's what I mean. No ma'am, I'm fine. Thank you. Good. Yeah, so unless somebody dies, I tell my family don't call me. I'm here, I'm laughing, but I'm serious.
That's the truth. I hear
I'm
you.
serious.
The same way.
I'm serious. Unless somebody, and I'm talking about they.
We'll call to order the City of Douglasville City Council Legislative Work Session for tonight, which is a Tuesday rather than a Thursday because of Thanksgiving. Tuesday, November 26, 2024. So call this meeting to order. Our invocation will be done by the Elder Zarinia Johnson of Harvest for Christ Church. If you're here, if you would please come forward and give us the invocation. After the invocation, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by the Mayor Pro Tem, City Councilmember Terry Miller. Please stand for the invocation.
Most heavenly and gracious Father, Lord God, we just thank you on today. We thank you for keeping us all safe from hurt, harm, or danger, and allow us to come together for meeting. Lord God, I pray that everything would be discussed that needs to be discussed, that you would give them sound decision-making, sound choices to improve and further the city of Douglasville. I pray as they leave this meeting, Lord God, that you would keep them safe from all hurt, harm, or danger, keep their families safe, and be a refreshment to them over the holidays. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem, for leading us in the pledge. And Elder Johnson, we appreciate the prayer and invocation for our families, and the same for you. I'd like to welcome you to the Douglasville City Council Legislative Work Session. My name is Rochelle Robinson. I'm Mayor of the City of Douglasville. The business that we're going to discuss tonight, no official action will be taken on these items discussed this evening. It will be taken on the items next Monday at our 6 p.m. Voting meeting. If the business you're here for is not listed as an agenda item, there will be ample time under comments from citizens and delegates for you to discuss your business. We only need one person speaking at a time. Please do not be disruptive when you come to the microphone, and direct all of your concerns, comments, and questions to the committee chairperson. The agenda items will be handled in the following manner. The persons, if we have someone presenting tonight, they'll come forward, present their items to myself and council members. We may ask questions. After that, if it's not listed as an agenda item, and it's not a public hearing, we will not have a public hearing, but if a public hearing, we will, and each person has 5 minutes to speak. There are 20 minutes for those in favor and 20 minutes for those in opposition. If you have any electronic devices, we ask that you would please put those in silent mode. And if you have cell phones and such, please put those in silent mode or turn those off so the meeting will not be, we won't have disruption during the meeting. I think I already said that. If you have printed materials, there you go. Please bring that forward and hand it to Ms. Candace, our Assistant City Clerk. She will make copies, pass the copies out to myself and council members. Now, we will move on with the agenda. There are copies outside on the desk, or you can follow us on the screen above my head. So we'll move on with the agenda items. Those are the announcements, and now we're at number 5, which is Economic Development Committee, and that's chaired by Mayor Pro Tem, City Council Member Terry Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have
You're welcome.
2 items under the Economic Development Committee tonight.
Yes, sir.
And with council's indulgence, I'll go ahead and read them both together since they're related. First is to reappoint Leslie Chu to serve as Post 5 member of the Development Authority of the City of Douglasville to a 4-year term expiring July 23rd, 2028. And the second item is to reappoint Philip Sisk to serve as Post 6 member of the Development Authority of the City of Douglasville to a 4-year term expiring July 23rd, 2028. Ms. Chelsea Jackson, I will.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chelsea Jackson, 6695 Church Street. These 2 items are pretty much straight to the point. Mr. Leslie Chu, as well as Mr. Philip Sisk, would like to be reappointed to the City of Douglasville's Development Authority for a 4-year term. Mr. Chu currently serves as the chair of the board, and Mr. Sisk, he served for a few years as well. So these 2 individuals, they're always present. They're always inquisitive as it relates to all of the many bond deals and incentive deals that we do with the Development Authority. So staff recommends reappointment, and no other individuals are interested at this time to serve on this board.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jackson. There's a wonderful, quick little story about Phil Sisk that I just found out. This is awesome. He was one of a basketball player for Georgia Southern. And he played his first game for the first day in Hanner Fieldhouse, which is now being decommissioned. And he attended this past week the last game that is being played at Hanner Fieldhouse, which is, so they interviewed him on ESPN for that. I just thought that was a wonderful little piece of history right there. So, does anybody have any questions or comments regarding either of these two nominees? Okay, if it is okay with the rest of council, I'd like to place this on the consent agenda. All right,
Looks like it's good.
that's all we have under the Economic Development Committee, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mayor Pro Tem and Deputy City Manager. And those two gentlemen have served us very well. They're very dedicated, and we're happy that they'd like to continue to serve on a volunteer board that we have with Economic Development. We'll move on to Finance Committee, chaired by Councilmember Chris Watts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business tonight under finance.
Thank you so much, Councilman Watts. We'll move on to Housing and Community Affairs Committee, chaired by Councilmember Howard Estes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Housing and Community Affairs Committee has no business this evening.
Thank you, sir. Legislative and Intergovernmental Committee, we're back to Mayor Pro Tem City Councilmember Terry Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one item
Welcome.
under the Legislative and Intergovernmental Committee at this time, and that
Yes, sir.
is to authorize the mayor to sign an amicus brief in support of the Georgia Municipal Association's position regarding the Chang versus City of Milton case. And our city manager and assistant city attorney will provide further information on this.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We mentioned to you a few weeks ago about a case for the city of Milton where they're currently liable for a $35 million lawsuit for the death of a young man who was killed in an automobile accident as it relates to a obstruction near the roadway. Lynn is going to give you some information on the amicus brief, but what I will say in preparation for your meeting with the delegation, you all saw the video that we put together, and this is one of the legislative priorities. The biggest issue and concern that GMA has holistically for all cities is that based on the way that the court case was interpreted, how they interpreted roadways, it would impact all cities in the state of Georgia. So something like a telephone pole, a building that's close to the road, all of those things would be considered a part of the right-of-way. So if a similar accident were to happen in the city of Douglasville, we could be liable for something very similar because of all of the things that are encapsulated in the law as it relates to that definition of roadways. So that's going to be the main issue. Of course, we want to support the city of Milton, but there's other impactful things as far as counties having immunity above and beyond the state's current threshold. Cities currently don't have that level of immunity at all. So there's even going to be potentially a request from the Georgia Municipal Association that cities be granted the level of immunity as with the state, not necessarily with the county. There's some history that GMA explained as to why counties have more immunity than the state of Georgia. The attorneys, Joel may be able to give you some information on that, but currently cities don't necessarily have that level of protection. So henceforth why Milton is being sued for $35 million. Lynn, you have anything? to add?
Right, and if the Supreme Court of Georgia declines to hear this appeal, then what was published in September, the interpretation of what a right-of-way is, a roadway is, will become the law that binds cities in the state of Georgia. It could be read very broadly, and the city would be liable for driving through every street throughout the city to check for any quote-unquote obstructions, even though it may be a well-intended item. For example, the city of Milton, they had a planter on the shoulder, and that's what the young man was trying to swerve away from. So currently, GMA and I believe IMLA are submitting amicus briefs, and there is another amicus brief that will be participated and joined by multiple cities to urge the Supreme Court to hear this case and to reiterate the city's position. And there will be a resolution that you all can vote on Monday to agree that the city of Douglasville participates and sign on to that amicus brief. Currently, I believe the author is still working on it, but I will try to get a copy of him, or at least an outline of the high points before our Monday meeting.
Okay.
Are there any questions? Thank you. Are there any- Madam Mayor, yes.
I do have a quick question. I'm just trying to understand in my head, understand what you're saying. Amicus brief is kind of like a class action suit?
No, it's just a friendly brief to argue in one position or
Amicable.
another for the court to hear other different voices.
Okay, and then what is the difference, because we've had lawsuits before, like someone, their tire is blown or they fall on the sidewalk. So what's the difference in that and them not just using a civil case and, you know, suing for millions of dollars for a civil case rather than sue the city in this respect? Why doesn't it just, it's always been that people sue the city for falling or something and we pay them out?
Well, as Marcia mentioned, the issue in this case, the city is reliable for obstructions in your roadway if you know about them.
Okay.
In this particular case, there had been a planter owned privately, it wasn't put there by the city, a large concrete planter. Had been there for 25 years. It was 4 blocks from City Hall. And it was within the right of way as defined by state law. Okay, a young man was speeding, lost control, hit the planter and got killed. The problem in this case, and I don't know, most cities are aware of obstructions in their right of way, but there are 2 kinds that come up pretty often. The first one is utility poles, which are there pursuant to state law. A lot of people hit utility poles. The other one that comes up is some guy goes out and plants a Burfordii holly. You know, the base is on his property, but after 15 years, the sucker's 12 feet wide and you can't see around it. In theory, cities ought to go out there and cut those down and clear the obstruction, but hardly anybody does. The issue in this case, in reality, isn't the verdict. In my opinion, the verdict was right under the law. The problem is, cities don't have any protection against large verdicts. The state has something called the Tort Claims Act, which covers counties, because under Georgia, counties are considered a part of the state government. Cities are not. The real solution to this would be to get cities added to the Tort Claims Act or enact a separate statute giving us the same situation. Had this been a case against a county, $2 million would have been the most you could get. In this case, you had a jury in Fulton County worth $35 million. Under Georgia law, the measure of damages in wrongful death is the clear and enlightened conscience of the jury. So I don't know. The brief certainly may help. I think what this case may do is call attention to this problem, and maybe the legislature will do something.
That's interesting.
I'm not counting on a whole lot out of the Supreme Court to redefine what a roadway is. I don't think that's going to happen.
And to Joe's point, Madam Mayor, I think the GMA is assuming the same. So the signing on to the amicus brief, the hope is that there's enough cities and enough voices to create concern, as Joel mentioned, so that this can be served as an awareness to say, hey, for instance, the city of Milton, how will they pay $35 million when their budget is $35 million? Are they going to bond this out? I mean, what will they leverage? So this opens up a lot of issues for a lot of cities because of the nature of what's going on. I do know that in the meeting, was that last week, Bill Burton, city manager of Marietta, mentioned they were having issues with their insurance carrier as well, who was basically citing, there's several who've left the state of Georgia because of not being able to cover. So that's what you're dealing with.
My question
Yeah.
is about insurance coverage and whether,
Yeah.
because this is technically a
Right.
correct decision, would it not be covered by insurance?
Most will have a $2 to a $5 million cap.
The,
Yeah, so you're still in good shape.
the way, it's already been decided in courts what cities do when they get that. They'll either have to borrow the money or they'll have to raise taxes to raise that money in a reasonable length of time, usually 3 to 5 years, so.
Just, it may have been a correct decision, but the judgment just seems
Egregious, doesn't it?
excessive when, if it had been a county, the most they would have been able to rule is $2 million. And I know it was based on the jury's discretion, but, I mean, what's the point here, to bankrupt the city? I mean,
Well, many juries don't give much thought to that. I mean, you could get 5 different juries in that case, and you got 5 different, amounts. I'm not suggesting to you that the Tort Claims Act is a good deal, because many cases, the damages, particularly in today's times, $2 million doesn't pay for anything. You can get hospital bills like that, broken bones. So I don't know. It's a situation the legislature needs to address.
Joel, a quick question. If we were to, you said that the counties are basically considered part of the state government. If the cities were to receive the same treatment, does that change our charter in some way, or a form of government in any way?
No,
or-
I suspect what the legislature would do is have to enact a Tort Claims Act for municipalities would be the solution.
Okay. Is there, and is GMA working on that now?
Yeah, so at the Legislative Policy Council meeting last week, the ask is going, we don't think that, well, GMA doesn't think that the legislature is going to go for us having the same level of immunity as the counties. There's just, I mean, for us to have, because the counties have basically, complete immunity. What the hope is that we could be at least at that $250,000 cap, as with the state, or some type of cap, but not have us out, because there is some language in the law, and I don't have it in front of me, your attorneys can look it up, where under the Tort Claims Act, municipalities they're listed, but for whatever reason, we're not considered a part of that. So GMA is going to rely on that portion of the law to say, hey, look, here's an example of why cities should be included. What I am hearing is that the governor is concerned about this as well, because apparently the state of Georgia has now exceeded the state of California for civil lawsuits such as this. So,
Questions like with the, succeeding California, like when you look at our rail service and trails and things like that, we have, I mean, although California does too, we have a lot of cars on the road. I mean, doing our trail system and walking will really help that process.
right.
Yeah, so wow.
Yeah, so I think the challenge is going to be, what I'm understanding is the Trial Attorneys Association has huge pockets. I mean, if you watch any bit of television, hear any commercials or drive up and down the road, you see every attorney along the highway. So that's going to be the fight. And you have some of those members who are in the legislature themselves. So it's going to be interesting.
Concern I have also, I attended a seminar a few years ago on the enforcement of ADA, and there are people out there who basically make a living out of testing ADA circumstances, in whether it's in private entities or public entities. They basically go around suing for anything they can find where, if there's, a ramp that doesn't have the right slope on it, they'll sue. If there's an obstruction anywhere, they'll sue, and that's their job. And so, this sounds like something that should be really pushed toward the top of the agenda, is once again proving the cities in the state of Georgia are the poor stepchild when it comes to the government. Any other questions or comments from anybody on the council? Anything else from staff regarding this issue? Yeah? Okay. I think there's pretty unanimous consent on this one, so if we're okay, I'll put this on the consent agenda for Monday. Madam Mayor, that's all we have under the Legislative Intergovernmental Committee.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. That was lively conversation, very important topic. We'll move on then to Personnel and Organization Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Howard Estes.
The Personnel and Organization Committee has no business this evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you, Councilman Estes. Planning and Development Committee, chaired by Councilmember Nicole Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
We do have one item this evening.
Yes, ma'am.
It is item number 24-292, and it says to adopt a resolution to increase the City of Douglasville's Building, Zoning, and Engineering Department service application fees. And Ms. Shayla Reed is going to go over this item with us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Shayla Reed, Community Development Director at 6695 Church Street. Before you tonight is a fee schedule that we have collectively brought for community development, the City Engineering Department, as well as mentioning of some fire inspection fees. As you'll see in your memo, I've provided to you the dates of the last adoptions of the fee schedules. As you can see, we updated our zoning ordinance, or our UDO, in 2019. After that, we updated our zoning fees to reflect those changes of the 2019 code. And then after that, well, before that, was the 2004 code for engineering. However, our building code fees have not been updated since the 70s, or early 80s, shall I say. So we are now looking to see how we can update our fees so that we can be more current in our rates, so that when applicants are coming into the door, they are in fact paying the fees that Metro Atlanta is seeing. You may recall that in January, I came before you with a file that showed 6 communities, including ours, of what our construction fees were. And you can see that we were relatively low, or lower than most of the cities that we brought. So what staff did was we compared those fees with those other communities and found a grand average. And we proposed it to you to still stay below those fees, but not extremely low as we are right now. And so you'll see that the zoning fees, I've identified, just to kind of start where those fees lie. Page 3, you'll see I identified where those changes are. I identified all of those changes in red just to kind of identify what those fees are that are changing. There are some application processes that did not have fees, so we're not able to charge for those currently today. So we're proposing there be a fee for those services. Your staff is taking the opportunity to spend time to review each application as they're coming into the door. So there's a substantial amount of time that's given to plan review. And so these fees are related to those kind of time barriers, as well as knowledge that you're placing into the staff, because as you know, you provide a training budget for us. We ensure that that training is provided to those staff members. Marcus and I share a team that has to be certified and going through certain credentials. So with that being said, the city's paying into that. So we're hoping to be able to get that back through the services we're providing. In addition to that, you'll see that your zoning fees are increasing. And that's a slight bit. It's not extreme, maybe $200 for those zoning fee increases. And again, if you go back to that scale that I presented to you in January, we're substantially even low with the increase that we're giving. It's not extreme, so it shouldn't be much detriment to your customers as they're coming into the door. If I can go to the building component of it, starting on page 6 and 7, the ICC, was the International Code Council, gives us a formula to use. We use the formula, we can determine the fees. So with that, I have given the proposed formula with the increase of fees no more than an additional $25. So the fees are still relatively low, but not extreme. But here's where you may see some slight differences. Going back to that 1970, 1983 adoption, you'll see where there's either no cost or cost that is low as 2 cents for some of the things that we're charging. And that's going to be starting between page 7 and 11 for those increases. And then even more so with 12 and 13. Okay, page 15, which is where our engineering fees are. If I can give an example, Marcus, if Marcus is reviewing a site plan, if it's 1/4 acre or 82 acres, it's the same fee. Marcus has proposed that we charge the fee based on the acreage, and that is because he's spending more time on the larger acreage than he is on the smaller. So he's asking to have those fees increased to reflect the time and attention that's given to those sites. And then lastly, which would be page 15, your fire fees. We are looking to have some inspection rates included for fire here as well. These fees have been shared with us from the county, so these are fees that the fire department or fire team has shared with us. So these are subject matter experts who have provided those fees to us on the fire lens. And then that concludes my report. Marcus, did you want to add anything? Awesome. Okay, so I think we're all great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Estes, looks like you've got a question.
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, if so many of these fees have not been raised in a significant amount of time, are we raising them enough so that we don't have to turn around and do this again in 2 years? Or
I think that we probably need to periodically look at them. I would suggest you, I mean, since you're going in some instances from 0 to something,
Yeah.
I think we don't raise them too significantly. I think
I
we
get
do it
that.
now, and then in the next 2 years, we come back and we
I
can
mean,
make
do
the
we want
adjustments.
to set a
Correct.
schedule for review of them? Or
Yeah, I think it's every 3 years you need to
Okay.
review. That way we don't get to a place where it's
Okay,
in, yeah, 1979.
that works for me.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, I think this is important, obviously.
Yes, sir.
You know, there are costs associated with staff's work, and we need to recoup some of that. So thank you for the work.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Berdanley?
Thank you, Councilwoman Miller. Wow, that's a long time ago. I was just looking at this resolution back in 1986, and I was graduating high school then. My gosh. So how are you going to communicate with our builders or the public?
Thank you for that question. So our great city manager has given us a role of updating our processes for building plan reviews, submitting, or applications. So we're thinking that it's great to put it at the time, and we're doing that now. So we're educating the public on our new processes. So we'll update the fees at the same time. So we're partnering with community relations to get that information out. So we'll spend the next 30 days sharing our new processes and our new fees for January 1st. Yes.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking through we've got an itemized fee list for building inspections. I assume, you know, our building inspectors go through with a checklist. Have we been charging for each item on that checklist? Is that how we normally do that?
So once the application is put into the system, they have itemized areas that they're clicking. The system automatically charges based on those informations that the applicant is including. So that's how we know what we're inspecting when we're going out, based on the permit that we've given. They're able to itemize their permit in the system. Once they're taking that inspection, we take that permit with that itemized list to go out and inspect those things.
Right, but I mean, are we going through, are we then turning around and basically charging them like a bill of lading for each of, you know, like for instance, you know, if a dishwasher was installed, there's now, what was a $2.25 charge. Now it's a $10 inspection fee. Hose bib is $10, roof drain $10.
And
I mean,
that's standard, Mayor Pro Tem.
That is-
It's standard.
That's how we do it?
Yeah, correct, yes.
Okay.
That is per the International Building Code. You don't see the back-end work, but that is standard how it's charged.
That's how we calculate the fees, not based,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I was always in the impression we were doing it as a square footage basis, not on a.
Not for these items. Those are, so when you're looking at the trade list, so for trades, for example, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, that's the listing that you're looking at. When it comes to square footage, that's the building permit. So you have the building permit fee that we have, but the trades are separate. Those are the itemized individual listing for those trades.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
I just want to make sure I understood that correctly. My only other comment was, I think it's kind of funny that in 1979, the entire city budget was $1.5 million.
Oh, we've come a long way.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor Pro Tem. Madam Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Reed. We appreciate the report, and I know our city engineer helped you as well with your team. So the mobile food truck, I was looking at that fee and the sidewalk cafe permit.
Yes, ma'am.
So those are just the fees, but we don't have, in this report, they don't have time limits, like, you know how sometimes you can do like a banner for 30 days and all that type of
So
thing.
your zoning code speaks on those timeframes and time limits. Of course, right now, we're not charging anything for those.
Okay.
At the time when the ordinances were drafted, we didn't update the fee schedule. So now we're trying to reflect that there's a zoning code now for, and actions for staff to review. We're trying to ensure that there's a fee associated with the application, because right now it's free.
Okay.
And so we're just trying to give an opportunity, because again, going back to the plan review, an opportunity that we're giving as far as staff to spend time reviewing page by page. Some of these pages are 10 to 15 pages of review,
Oh, wow.
and they're free of charge for some of them.
Okay. Now, how are we going to keep a handle on food trucks? How do we know, is it a honesty program, or do we check with the Department of Health, or how do we know who
So
has
because-
food trucks in the city?
Yes, ma'am. So for those who are upfront and are applying for those food truck permits, we do review those and give an opportunity to have those reviews taking place based on what the code requires. So we monitor it that way.
Okay.
From those, we have a full list that we're using. Just recently this summer, we've had to pull that list to give an opportunity to ensure that those with food truck permits are operating and those who are not with those permits are not. So we monitor that quite often. If someone is out and serving food from a food truck without a permit, there have been opportunities for code compliance to have conversations and sometimes even court hearings, depending on how far it goes.
Okay. And so you said the zoning does speak to, our ordinance speaks to the time frame. So there are some trucks that are stationary, like at a gas station or something. They're outside. Is that annual they have to renew and
So
pay
there's
this
a-
fee?
There's a temporary time frame that the fee gives, or the zoning code gives, as far as how long that permit lives.
Okay.
But again, if they're out there without operating with a permit, those are the ones that are being told to close down and go to City Hall to receive a permit. And then, we handle it from there. But yes, there is a time frame based on the code.
All right.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you so much.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Are there any other questions or comments? No? Okay. I think we've had some good, healthy conversation on that. Ms. Reed, I really appreciate you going over all of this with us so well. I know we had pointed out that with these fees not increasing since the 70s and 80s, and I know you guys sure don't work for what the employees were working for in the 70s and 80s, and the technology sure does cost a lot more than it did in the 70s and 80s, so this really makes sense, I believe. I think we're doing the right thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you
Council,
all.
are you guys okay with placing this on the consent agenda? Wonderful. Thank you, guys. Madam Mayor, that is all that we have for planning and development.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairman and Director Reed. We'll move on then to item number 11, Public Improvement and Beautification Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Nicole Miller as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business this evening for public improvement and beautification.
Thank you, ma'am. Public Relations Committee chaired by Councilmember Samuel Davis.
No business at this time, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Davis. Public Safety Committee chaired by Councilmember Dr. LaShawn Burdanley.
No, ma'am, no business tonight, thank you.
You're welcome. Recreation, Culture, and Tourism Committee chaired by Councilmember Chris Watts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business tonight in Recreation, Culture, and Tourism.
Thank you, Coach. Technology Committee, I see Director or Manager coming forward, Mr. Jenkins, and this committee is chaired by Councilmember Elena Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We
You're
have
welcome.
one item under the Technology Committee.
Yes, ma'am.
Item A is authorize the mayor to sign an amendment to the Microsoft Volume Licensing Agreement to increase the quantity of available license. And Mr. Sam Jenkins is going to tell us a little bit about this.
All right. Hello, Madam Mayor, Council. Sam Jenkins, 6695 Church Street. So once a year, we come up with our, it's time to renew our Microsoft licenses. So it's that time. So this year, we did have to increase our license from 325 count to 350 count because of just growth. But everything else pretty much stayed the same. This is for our Microsoft servers and also for our Microsoft email and Office 365 applications. Does anyone have any question about anything?
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. That all sounds pretty straightforward. I know we discussed it a little bit on the phone earlier this week as well. So this is just a standard renewal procedure. Did anybody on council have any specific questions related to this item? Okay, seeing none, would it be a consensus that we can place this on the consent agenda for Monday?
Looks like it's good.
All right, I'd like to do that, and that's all we have for the Technology Committee, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Hudson, and thank you, Mr. Jenkins. We'll move on then to our last committee, which is Transportation Committee, chaired by Councilmember Dr. LaShawn Burdanley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is not an item on the agenda tonight, but I would like to bring to our city manager's attention, we were just talking about right-of-way. I had a resident to contact me. If you were coming over the old Campbellton Street, there is and I don't know if it's in the residence yard or if it's our right of way, but there's a huge, tree. I'm sorry, I can't lift this arm up, but it's right in where that strip is. The tree is almost over into the street. It's on Dallas Highway. Yeah, it's like right before you get to Willie Watkins. Yeah, so I just had and it is huge. I mean, if it fell, it would do some damage. Yeah, it looked like but no, we don't have any items, but I just wanted to bring that up, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Danley, for bringing that to our attention. I'm sure City Manager will pass on to Public Works, and we'll look at it. Thank you so much. Do we have any other business to come before council tonight? Thank you. I don't see any. Happy Thanksgiving in advance. Appreciate you all. And we'll move on to updates from our city staff. Our city attorney, Mr. Joel Dotson.
No business, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Colonel Dotson. Our staff attorney, acting, Ms. Lynn Woodfield, Attorney Woodward.
No business, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Captain, you have something from the police department?
No business tonight, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Good to see you. Our city manager, Ms. Marcia Hampton.
The only thing I have is a request. Do you all have any issue with us closing City Hall at noon tomorrow for staff? All right. All right. So we will close tomorrow at noon, and I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on Monday.
Thank you so much, City Manager. We have any comments from citizens and delegates? If we don't have any in the audience to come forward, have any comments? Not seeing any, not having any other business before council tonight, this meeting is adjourned.